Hi, this is Summer with Summer's Tips and Stitches, and today I have 3 things that I'll be chatting about in the video. The first I thought I would show you, I finished another cowl, and the reason I'm pointing this out because actually I finished 2 others of Laurel's Big Button Cowl. This one I wanted to show you because I actually ran out of the black yarn. I didn't have enough purple to do a full cowl. I only had 1 skein. And I was contemplating doing black and pink and purple, but I decided to just do the black, and I feel like you don't notice it right away until I point it out, especially since you can like fold it up like that. But yeah, that is the purple Deborah Norval mixed in with some black sequins, and then I put a black button there, which you can't really see too much in the video. But that is Juanita wearing one of the latest cowls. All in all, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, ideally, I'd like black to be from here to here. But I think maybe I'll just keep this one. I probably won't sell it at my next craft adventure. I don't know. I don't know if somebody buying this would be upset that the black doesn't go all the way. But I made it work, and I really like it, and I think the other black one has a lot of sparkle, and this just gives it a little hint. It's very sparkly in the camera, and I don't think as sparkly in real life. The other thing that I wanted to do real quick, this is a call for help, friends. Let me get a little closer. I'm so bummed lately. I haven't been able to be in the basement because my kids are down there with their friends and they're super loud. So I'm not in my craft corner. I'm upstairs in the living room. So, somebody I know asked me to make them a hat, and they printed off a picture and handed it to me. I have scoured Ravelry, free craft crochet websites, anyone I can find, image searches. I've tried to search for this image. I find the picture, but the picture, every time I go to click, you know, when you do like a Google image search, it takes me to this website that says like, buy European clothes for your kids. And then when I do an image search for this picture, it takes me to kind of like a stock photo where you can, a website where you can get photos. So I really would like to be able to make this hat because I'm going to show you a picture of it. It's a very interesting pattern that I've never seen before. And I know I have a lot of experienced crocheters that watch my channel and that will possibly know what hat this is. So I'm going to cover up my face. I'm going to put it in real nice so you guys can get a good view of this hat. As you can notice, the brim does look like it's worked in small rows and the hat is joined on top of it, and it looks like it's done in back loops. But I've never seen a pattern like this for this hat. It looks like 2 strands that are waved, or crochet chains that are waved in and out. I don't know if that was enough. So if you folks have seen a pattern like this, if you have directions, whether it's in a book, write it down, copy it down. I will try to buy this. I'll buy this pattern at this point. If it's a book, maybe I'll look into buying the book off of Amazon. When you type in crochet pattern, this doesn't come up. Like literally nothing. I cannot find any information on how to make that hat. I wouldn't even know what kind of stitch this is called. Now there are very similar type hats on Ravelry that involve some sort of like arching, you know, like this, but nothing that's solid. It's all kind of like a chain netted, for lack of a better word. So anyway, that's what my second thing is. I'm asking for help. Please, if anybody has any information about what this hat's called, what this stitch is called, maybe a pattern, even if it's a paid pattern, I'll buy it. I just was wondering what this hat is. There it is, the 3rd time. Cute girl, don't know her, but that's the hat I'm looking for. Okay. So the last thing that I am going to talk about in this video, I've actually thought about doing this video a few times, but I generally figure that most of you know more than I do about crochet, seeing as though I've only been crocheting actively for about 3 years. And up till, and literally, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but not even until the last 3 years, I thought Red Heart was the only yarn available because I just saw it at Walmart. I mean, I know Walmart sells other yarn, but Red Heart was the only thing I ever even knew about. I mean, I knew there was wool from sheep, but I never thought that was affordable. But anyway, backtracking. So I've had a few people mention in the comments or ask questions about different yarns, about different yarn sizing and things like that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to answer, because I try to answer questions in the comments. Sometimes I get behind, especially now that I'm working 40 hours a week. So I thought I made this video, the bulk of it should be about different yarn types / weights. So I made this little thing to show you. And again, I will zoom up so you can see a little bit better what I have here. I probably should have made this bigger. Ooh, I'll get up close. Now I'm sinking in my chair. Just a second, folks. Let me adjust. Okay, so what I did is I took a strand. Believe it or not, I had all this yarn downstairs. And I'm starting up here at the top with Super Bulky. This is what Super Bulky looks like. And this is actually a Lions brand yarn. This is the one that I made my first big button cowl out of. That is a Super Bulky. Usually they're labeled 5. So there's 2 types of labeling. Sometimes they have the words on them, aka Super Bulky, or they will have numbers on them. I don't know, like I said, I've only been working with yarn for 3 years. I don't know if they're switching from the words to numbers, or if they're gonna do both, or if they're switching from numbers to words. But anyway, at this point, yarn will oftentimes have the word of what it is, Super Bulky, Bulky, and then 5. This is a 5. Next, right here, this is actually one of the Hobby Lobby yarns that I bought on clearance. I think it's like Aspen something. This is labeled a Bulky 5. So it is also a 5, and it's labeled Bulky, whereas this one is Super Bulky. The next one down, this is a very, very, very unnoticeable difference between Aran and worsted. And, oh, maybe I'll write this down here. Like I said, these were 5s, and these are 4s. There you go. Now, ooh, that one's on it. I have done very little research in regards to what Aran yarn is, but from what I can tell is most people consider Aran and worsted the same. However, with anything, there are people that are gonna swear that they're very different. And you know what? They can. I have done little to no work with Aran yarn, but do the bulk with worsted. And this is a good old Red Heart worsted right here. This is actually cafe color, I think, or coffee. I don't know, but I use this to make bears with. The next one down is a DK, and this is labeled a 3. DK also is very, very close to a sport weight, I believe, and that's the next one down. There's also a lot of yarn that is labeled a baby sport weight. And then this yarn right here, I believe these are 2s, the sport, and the fingering is a 1. Fingering yarn, this is actually from my knit crate, one of the month. Usually, I feel, is more of a knitted yarn. A lot of fingering yarn is knitted or used for socks. But this is a very thin yarn. Do you see how much smaller we're getting, friends? And the final thing, which I don't have that's labeled, which, to be honest, I have down in the basement, I don't know why I didn't bring it up, is a lace weight. A lot of times you'll see those on the spools. It's cotton a lot of time. I think, is it Aunt Thelma? And it's a much different. I almost should just pause my camera and run downstairs and get it. You know what? That's what I'm gonna do. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I brought up some of my lace weight. I probably should have pulled some out. I'm just gonna hold it on the card for you like this. Whoops. There it is. The final one. So I'm gonna hold this up so you can maybe pause the video and look. Here are Is this reverse for y'all? I hope not. I don't know how to write backwards. So anyway, here are all the different sizes. Super bulky, bulky, air and worsted, DK Sport, fingering lace. And it is a very gradual change. And then the two kinds of classic crochet, it's Aunt Lydia's. That's what I have. I have some Aunt Lydia's downstairs. I'm going to be honest though, I have not really used it very much. And the other one I have was given to me, it's falling apart, is Omega Crickies. I don't know how to say that. I'm going to be honest, maybe that's not English. And this calls itself a knitting yarn. So that is the reason, like I said, I was going to do this, is some people have posted, what's worsted weight yarn? Or I think I said DK something when I was talking about the Lion Brand. Lion Brand mandala yarn is typically a DK. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd make this, give you guys a little idea. Oh, I pulled the lace down now. I didn't tape it on. Give you an idea of what the yarn weights are. Now, this is one of my tips, which you'll hear this and you'll probably be like, everyone should know that. And I agree, everyone should know this, but I didn't. So, the first baby sweater or the baby dress I ever made called for a baby sport, which is right down here. I did not know what that was, and I bought myself actually some Caron Simply Soft pink, and I made the sweater with the Caron Simply Soft. Now, some of you experienced crocheters and knitters are going to know that was a hot mess, but I didn't know that right away. And all of the stitches, I did exactly the same number. I did exactly the same, number of stitches they called for, but it came out much bigger. So it's very important, if you are going to make a pattern, that you use a yarn. You don't necessarily have to use a yarn they're calling for, but use a yarn that is similar in size to what they're requesting. If it's a smaller yarn and you use a bigger yarn, it's going to come out big. And if it calls for a big yarn and you're going to use one of these smaller yarns, it's going to come out small. So that's why sizing is important. So for example, if you want to make a baby sweater and it calls for a DK weight yarn, you really should get DK, or at the very least a sport weight yarn. You cannot make that DK weight project with worsted weight and expect it to come out the right size. Another thing that I was going to talk about in regards to the sizes, a lot of times you can in general assume a hook size, maybe even knitting needles, but I don't know enough about knitting needles to know. A bulky, you're going to want to use a 9. I think they're called like N/Ps, or maybe a J, but a bigger one. Whereas you can get away with maybe a J, K, or an L with this one. Typically worsted weights are 4 or 5, even an I, which I think is a 5.5. DK weights do really good with a 5, a 4.5, a 4. And then these ones down here, you're going to want to use some of the smaller hooks, a 3.5. Now, of course, there's very creative people, and they come up with projects like the Adirondack wrap that I use that uses mandala yarn DK. They call for a J hook. So using a J hook with a smaller yarn is going to make it look loose and lacy. And if you use a smaller yarn hook with a thick, bulky yarn, it's going to make it look very full and thick, like a fabric. It's not going to be holey. So using your hook to play with the different sizes is going to change the consistency. Do you see that mosquito, friends? Right there. Yeah. So using a hook is going to change the consistency and the thickness and the holiness of your fabric. So I feel like that is about all of my knowledge in the area in regards to yarn weight and hook. I actually have really zero experience in regards to needles. I have to look it up every time or use the reference. In fact, another funny story in regards to yarn and sizing is I am making an Adirondack wrap, that one that I just talked to you guys about. And it calls for a J hook, and I made the first triangle with the J hook. Then I started the second one, and maybe 5 rows in, I stopped and put it away and started making a bunch of other stuff. And I decided recently to just finish it up. Well, for some reason, I took my H hook out, and I finished the triangle, or the shawl, triangle number 2. I finished it with the H hook, and I did the same number of stitches and the same number of rows. And then when I held it up to the first triangle, it was significantly smaller. I'm like, what? I kept counting my rows over and over again. I'm like, why is this coming out that way? So then I looked up the pattern again to see where I possibly was failing, and guess what? Right away I saw that it was a J hook. I'm like, golly. So I had to pull out almost all of my second triangle. So the last day and a half, I was finishing the second triangle with the correct hook size, and I just finished it today at the dentist, and it's perfectly the right size. So yarn weight, yarn size, and hook, and I'm sure needle too, sizes all are very important in making sure that your garments, your scarves, your hats, your gloves, whatever you're making comes out the correct size. So if you're making a 6-month baby hat and you're using the wrong yarn weight or the wrong hook, it could come out to fit a small child or an adult, or it could come out to fit a preemie. So that is part of the sizing. The other thing, for instance, I know that I'm a very loose crocheter, so going down maybe from a worsted weight to a DK, or changing my hook if it calls for an I to a G, is going to make sure that my project comes out closer to gauge. So that's all I have to talk about. My cowl, I don't know if you guys can see. You really can't see that error, and I'm really happy about that. So my finished cowl, and again, I have a call out to all of you wonderful friends in the crochet world and knitting, if you're watching this. If you can find me any information about this pattern, I'd really appreciate it. And that is my little chat answering questions about yarn weight and yarn sizes. Until we meet again in our YouTube, happy crafting. Bye.